Greetings history enthusiasts and welcome back to Echoes of History, where we unravel the mysterious and intricate threads of war. Today, our focus turns to the Eastern Front of World War II, where a clash of ideologies and armies reached its crescendo. The Battle of the Seelow Heights, often overshadowed by the more famous battles of the war, played a crucial role in the push towards Berlin and the ultimate defeat of Nazi Germany. By early 1945, the Soviet Red Army had been steadily advancing westward across Eastern Europe. After their victory at the Battle of Stalingrad in 1943 and the successful Operation Bagration in 1944, they had regained momentum and were approaching the eastern borders of Germany. Berlin, the capital of Nazi Germany, was a major objective for the Allied forces, especially the Soviet Union. Adolf Hitler had made the city a symbol of Nazi power, and capturing it was seen as a strategic and symbolic victory that would effectively end the war in Europe. On April 9, 1945, the Soviet army captured Königsberg in East Prussia, which allowed the Second Belarusian Front under Marshal Konstantin Rokossovsky to advance to the eastern bank of the Oder River. As a result, the First Belarusian Front under the command of Marshal Georgy Zhukov could focus its efforts on the southern portion of its previous front line, facing the Seelow Heights, 80 kilometers or 50 miles from Berlin. Simultaneously, in the southern theater, the First Ukrainian Front, commanded by Marshal Ivan Konyev, redirected its primary forces from Upper Silesia to the northwestern region along the Nysa River. The First Belarusian Front was formidable, with a force comprising 9 armies and 2 tank armies. This force included 77 infantry divisions, 2 cavalry divisions, 5 tank divisions, 2 mechanized divisions, 8 artillery divisions, 1 guards mortars division, and a variety of other artillery and rocket launcher brigades, totaling about 1 million men. In terms of equipment, they had a substantial arsenal, boasting 3,059 tanks and self-propelled guns, as well as 18,934 artillery pieces and mortars. Recognizing the impending Soviet advance, the German High Command decided to establish a strong defensive line along the Oder River, with the Seelow Heights as a critical part of this defensive strategy. The heights offered a natural defensive advantage, being a range of hills that overlooked the surrounding area. The German Ninth Army under the command of General Theodor Beuys, of the Army Group Vistula was responsible for defending the front line extending 120 kilometers or 74 miles from the Finno Canal to Guben, which encompassed the Seelow Heights. Their defensive force consisted of 14 battered divisions summing around 110,000 men. In terms of armor, they had 587 tanks and 2,625 artillery pieces and mortars. To the south, the defense was in the hands of the 4th Panzer Army, which was tasked with countering the First Ukrainian Front's advance. On March 20, 1945, General Gotthard Heinrici took over as the leader of Army Group Vistula, replacing Heinrich Himmler. Heinrici had an accurate foresight that the primary Soviet offensive would occur along the River Oder and the Reichsstrasse 1, near the Seelow Heights. His strategy involved deploying a relatively light defensive force along the riverbank while significantly reinforcing the Seelow Heights. These heights stood approximately 48 meters or 157 feet above the Oder River and offered a commanding view of the river where the Reichsstrasse crossed it. To implement this strategy, Heinrici redistributed his troops by reducing their presence in other areas and concentrating more soldiers on the strategically important Seelow Heights. In the early morning hours of April 16, the offensive commenced with an enormous artillery barrage, involving approximately 9,000 artillery units and Katyusha rocket launchers. In the initial half-hour of the battle, more than 500,000 shells were unleashed, but Heinrici and Beuys had anticipated the attack and withdrew their defenders from the first line of trenches just before the Soviet artillery would have obliterated them. Well before sunrise, the First Belarusian Front launched its attack, crossing the Oder River, while simultaneously, the First Ukrainian Front pushed across the Nysa River. The First Belarusian Front was the more potent of the two forces, but it faced a more challenging task because it confronted the majority of the German forces. The marshy terrain posed a significant obstacle, and a German artillery barrage resulted in substantial Soviet losses. Growing impatient with the sluggish progress, Zhukov deployed his backup forces, which, as per his initial strategy, were meant to be reserved for an anticipated breakthrough. By early evening, the Soviet advance had covered a distance of 4 to 6 kilometers or 2.5 to 3.7 miles. During the second day of the offensive, the soldiers of the First Belarusian Front pressed forward in accordance with the initial plan. As the evening of April 17 arrived, the German Second Defensive Line was breached by the combined efforts of the 5th Shock Army and the 2nd Guards Tank Army. In contrast, in the southern region, the 1st Ukrainian Front was successfully pushing back the 4th Panzer Army. Simultaneously, the left side of Army Group Center, led by Ferdinand Schorner, was showing signs of weakening. Rather than deploying his 2 reserve panzer divisions to reinforce the struggling 4th Panzer Army, Schorner opted to keep them in the south to defend the core of his forces. This strategic decision marked a pivotal moment in the Berlin offensive because it made the positions of both Army Group Vistula and the central and right sectors of Army Group Center increasingly unsustainable. On April 18, both Soviet fronts made significant forward movements, but they suffered significant casualties in the process. Soviet forces circumvented the Seelow Heights from the northern direction, and during this maneuver, they encountered resistance from German reserve units launching counterattacks. By April 19, the First Belarusian Front successfully breached the last defensive barrier at the Seelow Heights, leaving only fragmented German units standing between them and Berlin. The remaining forces of the 9th Army and the 4th Panzer Army found themselves encircled by the advancing First Belarusian Front, along with units from the 1st Ukrainian Front that had broken through and shifted northward. During the period from April 16 to April 20, 1945, after the Battle of the Seelow Heights, more than 35,000 Soviet soldiers lost their lives, while the German side suffered casualties amounting to 12,000 deaths. The Seelow Heights defensive line marked the final significant barrier before reaching Berlin. Starting on April 19, the path to Berlin was wide open. By April 23, Berlin was completely surrounded, and the Battle of Berlin began. In just 2 weeks, Adolf Hitler had committed suicide, and the conflict in Europe was essentially concluded. If you found this video informative and engaging, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button. By subscribing, you'll stay updated on our upcoming historical content, so you won't miss out on exploring more crucial events from the past. Thank you for watching. If you found this video informative and engaging, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button. By subscribing, you'll stay updated on our upcoming historical content, so you won't miss out on exploring more crucial events from the past. Thank you for watching.